Okay, so hi everyone and welcome. I'm so glad you could be here tonight with us for our second online reading. I am Sarah Arnold and I'm the founder and editor of June Road Press, which by way of just a quick introduction is a very tiny independent poetry publisher based outside Philadelphia, now in the third year of operation. We publish about 2 books a year, and our focus for now is on debut and emerging writers who identify as women. And at this stage, it's a one-woman press, which is something that sets us apart a bit. Everything is done in-house with an emphasis on slowness and quality and craft. But I always use we because the press's current authors, who you'll hear from tonight, are absolutely central to what June Road Press is and what it's becoming. So tonight is an expression of my gratitude to them and to our readers, and it's a chance to come together around this thing that we're building and share in some of the magic and sense of connection that it's generated so far, which feels like something we could probably all use right now. So for the solstice, for the holidays, we wanted to share poems tonight that speak to a set of themes that fit this moment and this moment of the season. I know technically the solstice is on Thursday, but this was the night that we could include our whole group. And being able to hear from this whole group of extraordinary poets again together is really something special. So tonight, like last time, we're going to keep things really simple and informal. Each poet will read for 5 or 10 minutes, and I'm not going to introduce each author at length, but we'll put their full bios in the chat, along with links to where you can find lots of other details and fun extras for each book, and where you can get a copy if you don't have one. And for those of you who are watching or listening to the recording later and can't see the chat, you can find all of that in one place on the press website, and that's just juneroadpress.com. So we're going to mix up the order this time. We'll hear some different poems from each author, and we'll start out with poems that fit the loose theme of winter, darkness, and light. First from Hila Ratzabi, and then from Diane Whitney. And then we'll transition in the middle to a sort of, I guess, a wintry mix from Diane Lowell of seasonal poems, and also some that draw on themes of family history and memory. And then we'll hear from Mariella Saavedra Carquin for a deeper exploration of some of those themes and to sort of warm things up a bit. And we'll conclude with poems from Hannah Lee Jones that speak to the season and also sweep outward to carry us along on our journeys from here. And stick around because after that, we'll announce a couple of giveaway winners. We'll randomize the names of everyone who registered and pick two, and we'll send you, oh, I've got it here, a tote bag and a book of your choice. And then we'll leave some time for Q&A with the poets. So if you have questions along the way for any of us, really, hold on to those and we'll take them toward the end in the chat. And we'll talk about poetry and books and anything else that's on your mind. So with that, I am going to turn things over to our first poet of the evening, Hila Ratzabi, who'll read some chilly favorites from her debut eco-poetry collection, There Are Still Woods. We published this last September in 2022, and she is joining us from the Chicago area. So I'm going to give Hila a spotlight, and it's all yours.
Thank you so much. You did the holding up of the cover, which I was going to do too.
I
So
did, even with the sticker.
the sticker was my favorite part. I loved sticking them on.
I do too.
So thank you so much, Sarah. It's just an honor to be part of the June Road Press family and to read with these fellow poets again. You've all become press family, poet family, family to me, and it's just so wonderful to be together, especially in this dark time of year, dark time of history, in this moment. It's just always is uplifting to be around other poets. And I'm excited to read some poems, a few of which I don't think I've ever read out loud at a reading before, so this will be a lot of fun. I will start with Letter from the North. Is it spring in Philadelphia yet? I'm still waiting for the river to unfreeze. The buds must be poking up in the garden now. I put so many seeds in the soil, I have no idea what to expect. Were you in the lab all day? Do the cats have enough water? It seems like every day the snow melts, then freezes, then melts, then it snows all over again. You're getting spring first. I've never been this far north this time of year. I came here to see what would happen. I buried myself in the snow, listening for something. It's breathing quietly. I miss you. Don't forget to take out the compost on Thursday. What are you making for dinner? I thought I would discover something here. The earth is so still. Someone said they saw an otter scuttling across the frozen river, but I missed it. I think I figured out one thing. That quivering feeling in my heart comes straight from the earth's mantle, and there are no metaphors. I'm sitting here, waiting in the plain snow. End of the Anthropocene. I press my hand to the window of the studio. The entire animal of myself looks out at the earth. My temperature adjusts between cold and warm. The earth is letting everything happen to it. I have stopped protesting. I don't owe it anything. It's a relief. All that's left is to look and listen. There is a way to be an animal on earth that must be learned. I climb out the window, drop my knees to the snow. I'm surviving. I'm branching. The leaves are tapping. The snow is full of fists. It holds everything, then lets it go. The snow's wrinkled hand opens in the sun, and it's my hand. The words melt, drip from skin. I claim cloudship, etherize. The wind spits and hisses and sits in me. I'm crawling, sniffing, flicking snowflakes from my hair. There are still woods in the center of the terrified heart. There is a creek, ducks squawking for crumbs. You must choose to enter the woods. Note the ice, caught in the pose of falling. How long will it take the water to release its apostrophes of ice flung over the rock? Here come the crazed geese who got word of the crumbs. And here are my feet, making use of the road. And here is the river, split in half by ice, and the green liquid mirror where the day considers itself. A moment of sun on the hood of your jacket is something you get to keep. And if you allow it, the upside down bird of winter will arrive to ask what you're doing down there, looking up for no reason in the middle of the road. If you allow it, you'll find the spot where the river meets the creek, one water translating into another. The moment is not for you, but it is yours. Stone staircase leading down to the river. Keep it for now, says whoever poured the water into this shape. The geese declare their presence. Why don't you? Take the days I was able to spare. Take the path of gravel and ice, the path that strings your breath with strewn leaves. Roll up all the dead ends on your way back. And after the poem empties out of the river and the hand of the wind disappears, and it seems nothing else could arrive, The geese emerge onto the frozen grass. The path to the bench in snow. We listen to the river crack in the sudden sun. The snow is deeper than we thought, up to our knees. Each footprint, a well from which we draw the words we need. The path to the bench in snow must be imagined, and the mind must follow the ice to its core. It tells its millennial story to those with instruments to listen. We sit at the bench and look around at this place that we know and don't. Pristine mound of unprinted snow. Stay, Earth. Tonight, in this still breathing century, we encase each other, saving all the warmth we can draw from our bodies. Tonight, we let the ash fall. Let the snow begin its layering upon us. We're ready to fossilize this way, your leg wrapped over mine, my mouth whispering, stay, Earth, fold. Let them know we were here. Nocturne. The mountains hold their purple tightly to themselves. The sky is smudged by a finger dipped in pink. Under heron's wings, a shifting blue swoops in. The artists can't keep up with its names. Cobalt, cerulean, turquoise, cyan. While they talk, the bay keeps bluing and rebluing, the moon widening into its whiteness like a growling mouth. A million-year-old croak lines the sky of the heron's flight. We watch the blues blacken and the pinks dissipate like gowns dragged across the sky. We flick on our flashlights, step onto the path, poised for black bears and snakes, too late to settle on the color's proper name, folded as it is into the forest's throat. As though the world. How is it, after another earthquake, hurricane, bodies swallowed by cracked earth, you wake up, go down the stairs, see light spread across the carpet? Out the window, snow yields to heat, breaking open its wings. Sun inserts itself into each drop, crevice, branch, slat of wood. Light, careless as death. Who is it for? The man on the tracks? The baby covered in dust? Already, the sunlight is out of you. You peer out the window, as though the world had something urgent to tell you, something lodged in its throat. See how the light has moved across the room? Did you think you could keep it? Did you think it would burn? Just two more. How to pray while the world burns. Go outside, find a patch of grass, sand, dirt. Sit, kneel, place a hand or just a finger to the soft earth. Feel it pulse back. Open your palms and divine the words creased between. Rub the specks of dirt between your fingers. See how they cling to skin, how they listen in their soft, rough way. The earth will hold you better than God can. God could not stop the bullets or the sale of weapons. God could not block the open synagogue doors. Our God is trapped in the poison grass, where the blood of our brothers cries out, where the ants heave centuries on their backs. Pray to the God who sharpened the tiger's teeth, who stored the roar in its throat. Pray to the God who gave you lungs and tongue to sing and groan and hum. I swear to you, when the leaf shivers in the wind, you have given it chills from all its listening. The earth hears your prayer. There is nowhere for God to hide. Get down on your knees and let this precious earth soften for the weight of you. You are held. You are heard. The wind pulls its blanket over your back, smooths the hair from your face, touches your cheek with its cool, trembling hands. And the last one, thanks for listening. These fires. We count the stars from within the small frames of our bodies, heads propped against pillows on the terrace, the three of us, 1+2, who passed through me with a sudden gasp, bodies broken from my body. Our fingers point to that dome of darkness, speckled with the ash of burning gases, fires of fury or love or what can't be named because the dark holds its secrets tight, the way I hold you. We're here, aren't we? Leashed to the earth, no matter how far we run. I must teach you what I haven't learned myself, to be body bound, to count on your fingers what I know to be infinite. Those fires up there, these fires down here. But who will teach us how to dissipate back into light? Thank you.
Thanks so much, Hila. Those are some of my favorites. Very fitting for right now, I think. So we are going to move right to our next poet, which is Diana Whitney. And Diana's book, Dark Beds, this beautiful thing came out just this fall as part of our current season. And yeah, out in October. And Diana is joining us from Vermont, where it's probably colder than it is here in Pennsylvania. And yeah, the floor is yours, Diana.
Great. Thank you. Thanks so much, everyone, for coming. And we do not yet have any snow in Vermont, but Gila's poems really made me long for snow. So I'm going to keep in the theme of winter darkness with maybe some lightness at the end. Instructions for November. Put up the storms, cut down the corn, shear the dead things at their root. Nicotiana, blue aconite, the forgotten onions I found in cold dirt, scrabbling for the last of them, their shedding skins and yellow flesh, soft to the touch, but still good for soup. Our girl, dressed as a black ghoul, danced the kitchen, hissing threats. Lost a milk tooth, her fifth seed pearl, corn kernel rot from the wet red gap. Now she's licking the emptiness, leering at the dark spaces, offering a skeletal glove to greet us as we toss the rotten lanterns on the compost, turn back the clocks, lock the hens in at dusk. The coyote left strewn feathers, dry scat, no trace of blood. We lost only 2, 10 more to protect. They hop from the coop, dumb with trust, pecking at ice water with white dragon tongues, warm eggs flush in the nesting box. Night begins now at 4 o'clock. Smoky tunnel to the season of lead. Let's make the same promises over again. Shut out the lights. Come up to bed. Okay, the next poem's a tough one, but it takes you on a journey, so there'll be light to follow. Demeter in winter. I swear I didn't summon this December shitstorm of sleet and pellets, onyx nights and black ice sheeting the bridges, rattling the washboards, the Ford Explorer upside down in the frozen swamp beneath the power lines, moonroof punched by a fat tree stump, frost spattered with glass, and the driver crushed at 16. The earth split and death dragged her into a velvet chasm, and the jaws of life couldn't pry her out. Those teenagers weren't wearing seatbelts, I tell my girls, though it might not be true, only a mother's ruse to scrape some lesson from the horror, cast a feeble spell of protection over the beloved bundles of bone. Exhaustion is a root ache deep in the jaw. Relief is a silken rope unbound. Fear is a poison berry half swallowed, seeding paralysis and prayer. Not my daughters, never, never. Through dark and deeper dark they crawl into the belly of winter's beast. Peel a pomegranate, ruby hell fruit, savor seeds of the interior, seeds of another body. Sweet juice absorbed into their budding cells as I drive past the torches lit by the dead girl's parents. The other dead girl with the wild blue eyes and a shovel in the back of her bright red pickup, whose strong arms sliced across the pond in June. Never swim a river after 3 days of rain, I warn my 2, trying to scare the danger out of them, make them heed the hidden whirlpools waiting beneath any moving water. I don't say she was swallowed. I don't say her body surfaced 15 miles downstream. Now I skid through December's passage on these slick, salted roads, my girl strapped in back, singing pop songs, a fake wreath on the plastic shrine where rain hisses on the power lines and a solar candle burns ice blue, all the merciless hours of the night. Ooh, I haven't read that one for a little while, so I'm gonna lighten up slightly with a poem that I read at my book launch here at the Brattleboro Literary Festival. And it's for those of us, especially maybe in New England, who live in old houses. I think there were some New Yorkers in the audience who I scared a little bit. This one's called Mice. Who says women are afraid of mice? Today I trapped another 2, one in the basement, one beneath the sink, its neck snapped flat by the metal bar, black eyes bulging in the stench of drains and mouse shit. I wasn't sorry. I marched it dangling to the back field, deposited it in dead November grasses. Back where you belong, buddy, a snack for crows and earthworms. Give them a hole the size of a dime, they'll infiltrate. Before bed, I set my traps again, lock the doors, check the children who are barely children. All the mouse cousins and babies are scrabbling in the walls, feeding all night on cellulose insulation. They're desperate to survive the coming winter. They want what we want, only they have to want it more. Okay. Moving to another winter poem. Bad Fight, December. A little sugar snow sifts down on ice, fine veil of promises kept and transgressed. Alone in the wrecked woods, I run on spikes, crush bitten off twigs, jump the heaved branches. No one's gonna clean this up. All the evidence is scattered or threshed into submission. Hay stubble, dun thistle, goldenrod stripped bare and shivering in the crosswinds. Who can say if a disaster happened here or has yet to happen? If despair is a brief squall preceding surrender? Every quarrel, I imagine the end. Yet here we are, reeling on the current of years, drifting together, drifting apart, surging together. While far below, the river freezes violently. I return to the house like a cold front, cheeks ablaze with righteousness, breath full of crystals. Okay. So it's making me maybe want some sunshine poems. So I'm hoping the next poet can set us up for that. Staying Married. November drags her wet gray wool scarves across the valley, drapes a shroud of sky over bone branches, twig claws, the last dun remnants of leaves still clinging to their origins. How can a thing change until it's unrecognizable? Do you remember the verdant tips venturing forth in April, tender explosions suffused with tentative light? All that budding energy untapped and humming, sweet rage of chlorophyll beholden to no one, our fingers loosely entwined on the path. We thought we were different. We thought we were free. Now I'll trade my truth for your fiction, settle for some light reading or heavy petting, carry my overload into the underworld for winter's duration. Trajectory of the fallen, the last of the orchard cleanup cooked down into thick, sweet, rose pink sauce, no hint of tart, our bodies orbiting the gas blue fires, drawn inexorably to the simmering pot. Cinnamon taste of appeasement, atonement, what we've made of it, what we've got. Okay. So I'm gonna sneak in a newer poem here that's actually not from Dark Beds, but just all of you who are writers know that it's all of our energy towards to go to like what we've recently been working on. So actually, and I just want to celebrate with all you, I just finished a manuscript or one version of a manuscript, at least the first version. So, and it's called Girl Trouble. And this is also sort of the theme. It's called A Complex of Laboratories and Habitats, which is also actually on the NASA website, their description for the International Space Station. The dirty iceberg by the back door won't melt until April, but today, sugaring season is over. No more clear, cold sap drunk straight from the bucket, elixir flowing like an alpine stream, my face pressed to the metal lip, the veins of spring open, the trees offering up their sweetness for days, weeks, the holding tanks full of it, as you boiled at night by headlamp and starshine, as the space station arced above us, burning like a meteor, orbiting Earth at 7 kilometers per second, 15 sunrises per day. Were the astronauts up there floating or sleeping, running on treadmills, or eating silver packets of space ice cream? Did they dream of us below, standing by the boil, wreathed in wood smoke and maple steam? We are specks on a blue-green planet. March was cold and sweet and brutal. Then it turned. Sudden heat, I gather sap bare-armed in a cotton tee, haul the wagon through boggy mud ruts. In the pails, a scattering of drowned ants and beetles. The last sap is cloudy and oily, some yellow as piss. It's not like love or childhood. When it's over, you'll know it's over. Okay, I'm gonna go back to Dark Beds and read two more. Another sugaring season poem. This one's a sonnet from the end of the book. If you're lucky enough to live with someone who makes maple syrup in your backyard, you get some poems out of it as well as the maple. Sugar Maker. The heat lamp in the hen house burned all night, all day. The birds scratched hopefully at snowpack as you tapped the cold bark looking for a vein. Drill and hammer, freeze and thaw, lion and lamb blown raw by the winds of marriage, slush-ravaged hens huddled in plywood and sawdust. I crushed the secret like pitch pine tips, carried my fragrant hands close to my chest, waited for mud season's slow revelations, mist and murk rising from the remains of winter, first drops plunking buckets, a reminder. Sap run in muck boots, steady as rock maple you come with your pails slopping over, sugar maker at the steaming arch, tending our dark amber. Okay, I'm gonna read a last poem before turning it on over to the next one. And this is actually one I haven't read out loud before. So thanks to Sarah for choosing it. It's called Medicine. This is a poem, I guess, about self-healing. Medicine. Anything can be medicine. A jar of spring water, a dropper of oil, wind chimes at dusk by a door no one enters. The smallest cat venturing onto your lap, circling to make her daybed. There is medicine in her purr, her paws kneading your sweater. Medicine in the glow of the creased old heating pad borrowed long ago from your mother. See, it still works. Lay it over your belly. TV can be medicine if you're too sore to sleep. Even the child-proof vial of hard white pills concocted in a factory on another continent, rattling like teeth in the vitamin drawer, is necessary medicine for despair. Stop gritting your jaw, calculating your failures. Anything can be medicine. Open the cap, tip the pearls into your palm. Forgive yourself everything. Swallow. Thank you.
Thank you for that. Also some of my favorites, and I'm a sucker for a poem with a cat in it, so good way to conclude. And thanks for the new one. I can't wait to read that manuscript. I love your poetry. So we will move now to Diane Lowell Wilder with Leap 30. You can see lots of these books have stickers. So we just decided to sticker them up when they've gotten these kinds of accolades. Diane was my guinea pig, and this is from our first season from 2021. And it's her debut collection, and she's joining us from actually my neck of the woods temporarily. She's based in Rochester, New York, but she is in the Philly area visiting family. And Diane, I will turn it over to you and grab you a spotlight.
Sarah. Thank you. And thank you everybody for being here tonight. It is great to see old friends and smiles and get a chance to catch up through poetry and our love of language, and great to meet new people as well. I hope folks stay for the Q&A at the end. I grew up in Vermont, in Chester, Vermont, and I think a lot of what I'll be reading tonight captures this time of year where growing up, it was just sort of grim, but there's a lot of humor in grim for those of you from New England. So, Partridge. My father carries the saw. We bicker and trudge. My mother says no to each tree. One year, I'm old enough to pick my own ornament, a fragile partridge caked with sequins. One year, my little sister can't unplug the lights. We've strung them around the tree, and so she pries them from the outlet with a butter knife. My father replaces the fuse, while my mother holds up the knife with its blasted tip. Oh, my partridge sparkles when the lights come back on. My parents throw a party. My dream confuses matzo balls with crackers in the soup, hexagonal with divots on their sides, and salty broth that's yellow, flecked with fat, that could be bits of clams, which are also in the stew. People are pushed away by wrong inflections, the ones that warp a bit, the needle bumping, skipping, jumping to the lines ahead. I love that music. I profess as I agitate the living room to love that turntable, those radio textures in the sky. My father earned medals and was given kisses, manly ones from men to men, and he was sought for declamations with sherry raised in glasses high. And my mother was exquisite, a cathedral in a cave, salty with her earthly love, so saintly she could only tug at her hem when they came. There was Madeira that night, left in the decanter, shards of almond cookies hanging on her lips. So they kiss me good night with those sticky lips and let the men descend. Confusion in the hall as to what is egress and what is merely laundered linen, as the air smells fresh like folded sun. Doors bang open, doors bang shut, and then it sounds of skittering, like a dog caught on marbles. The sense of the body as the enemy, as a dragging maw, talking and disgorging crumbs in an accent I can't decipher. I will not forget its laugh, its goodnight chuck under my chin. Provisions, 2019. I slipped my spare calories into my mother's pocketbook. Imagine telling her, buy yourself something nice. Her fridge is ferociously full. Cream cheese, bagels, casseroles, and stews. Her counter's covered with the good intentions of family and friends. My sister insists again, try the banana split, a favorite once. My mother freezes over the chocolate syrup, an impossible landscape of ice cream beneath. She begs off, pushes her chair away, the food untouched. 1917. My grandmother, aged 10, thought dandelions delicious, carried a kitchen knife to pry each plant from hard prairie soil, brought them home to sprinkle with vinegar. Before the blossom is when the leaves are sweetest. 1975. Another dinner when my mother was especially upset. Chungking chow mein from cans, brittle noodles, wet celery, and water chestnuts scraped from her plates into the trash. Her pressed lips and hard eyes, pink dishwashing gloves, and one light on above the sink. A yellowing bottle of ivory soap. She scrubs at the cans ferociously, peeling their labels away. 2021. My mother said, take it. Use it as a planner or whatever. With a blade, I pare flakes of carbon from the base and think of all the cornmeal mush my great-great-grandmother cooked in this, served with molasses and cream. Remove the rust, oil it inside, test it out on my electric stove. Fill it, let the seasoned iron turn the water into air. vertigo. Oh, I see how it will end. This is the way of vision, cataracted, prismed, as my father careens, a bent gourd launched from his chair toward the bathroom, each afflicted foot taking him farther from the stability his windmill arms are seeking. And this is my mother, in a red sweater in a perpetual dash from kitchen to dining room, intent on clearing away the leftovers. I'm served another slice. I'm still hungry, and I'm so full. I'm moving farther from the center. I'm sitting quietly as they gyrate. I'm watching from within the centrifuge as they are spun away. Diorama. We planted these lilies 5 years ago outside the house, and they've survived. I think of it like a dollhouse inside, filled with furniture in 1/12 scale, with a table set for tea and tiny parents who move between the rooms in years while I play house. The wallpaper changes, the sofa grows shabby, the toy dog disappears. The flowers out front, laid bare, are made of toothpicks, tissue paper, and clay. And the hope of spring, mud season. Mud season. The winter is long and caked with gray, a time of bread and rough fibers. I hear your echo in the ice. There are pebbles in my shoe. Place one gently between tongue and cheek. Spring will bring boundaries of melt and uncovered wells. Sink into the river. Tilt your head and breathe through reeds. The leaves have upturned silver bellies. Imagine your thoughts rising to the surface, pale yellow, then saffron, then gold. Signal to me when it's time. And my last poem, The Way Out. You are fine with danger. I just hug your neck thinking, this time you've returned. When the nurse is gone, you tell me that there's all the time in the world. Every memory will live on, whether we are here or not. When I ask again if you'd like to hear the story, you nod from the bed. So I start. That day, we roared and burst, consumed our provisions, sustenance for the slog. When I find you again, in the deepest blue of ice, your voice becomes a cavern. The last image is always of your hand holding unpacked snow, your glove gone too. You call for my help to find a way out. I hand you a sweater that you can unravel. Some threads taut, some loose. I feel you tug. Thank you.
Thank you, Diane. I haven't heard you read so many of those, and I think I urged you to read My Parents' Throw Party for the first time, and it's so like ominous and weird and wonderful. So it just felt like an interesting holiday poem to put in there. So thank you for joining us. Yes, okay. We will move to next, Mariella Saavedra Carquin, whose debut collection, Maps You Can't Make, is amazing and also is part of our fall season. So this came out in September. And Mariella is joining us from the Denver area, where it's also probably very cold. Maybe not snowing, I don't know. But I'm going to turn things over to Mariella. You spotlight next and take it away.
Thanks so much, Sarah. It's snowing some days, and then some days it's 60 degrees. So we get everything. My first poem that I'm going to read is actually one of my favorites. It's called Album. 1. It's hard not to miss the memory of the time when the thing you know was new. You never know what'll stick like that, what your brain will decide to keep fixed as a photograph, until you smell the lavender in the field and the coffee cart along the way and feel the dampness on your neck because it's summer now. I miss when things weren't memories yet, when I didn't worry about capturing you because you were there and that was enough not to need to. I didn't think I need to, but here I am, damply ransacking my brain to find that one time we grabbed crepes and you got sick after, or that day you didn't meet me by the pond, so I sat and counted until I knew you'd never come. How do I get the pre-memory back? The moment before the photo snap, before you were there and then you weren't. 2. I wish I'd saved just one live image. I grabbed my phone instinctively to find you. When I remember, I got rid of them all. Didn't think physical reminders would be good for me. But now I'm left with only memory to work with, and memory works in incomplete ways anyway. Here I am, recreating blurry images, trying to add pixels to these pictures that live in the archive under your name. I can't quite make you out. For some reason, I saved a video where you're the side character. It's something, but this moving image, this isn't you. You've changed. This movement, your gait, the way your arms swing, your hair, your style, I don't think that's you at all. So what am I really looking at here? 3. Every day she feels a little farther away. I bought a frame to house a photo of her, smiling, drinking something sweet. When I light my candle near her and clean smudges from the glass that contains her, I greet her and smile back, 'cause maybe she can see me. I find old photos on my phone where she is smiling, kinda like living, and she feels close for 2 seconds before she's gone again. This is what time does. Convinces me that people are here and gone at the same time. This is how time works. It moves. It moves all the time. Next one is called Memory Things. What do I mean when I say I remember? I don't think two people ever mean it to mean the same thing. I don't think one person ever means it to mean the same thing. I mean that remembering each time is different, and each time you lose a little and you gain a little something. I have a picture of this one time. I dig through the archive in my mind and sort, and this is the one I find. I'm sure my father has his, and my sister has hers, and my mom, well, what becomes of the archive when that person passes? What parts can you still find and hold? We are getting off a plane. I'm wearing this white dress, white pantyhose and frilly socks, and dressy shoes, because that's what you do. That's how I'll dress my future, my imagined kids, like mommy did. My dad is holding me as we go down the plane steps. I don't think he'd ever let me fall. I don't think. My sister's there too. She can walk, they've decided. And mommy looks straight ahead. I'm nervous because I know what is to come and she doesn't. I couldn't warn them either way, because reality doesn't work like that. It goes forward. At least that's what they tell us. That forward means go, that forward means living, that forward means real. But I still want to see possibility. Not whether I could rewind, but whether I could gain control. How I might touch time, reach out and maybe hold some history. I can almost see her hopes, her future in this picture, what she meant, what happened later. A stream of that when I close my eyes. A Rolodex, you can stop anywhere and hold one. Feel its edges. Daddy's face doesn't know. He will later say, This is not how it was supposed to happen. He called it a tragedy, which annoyed my little sister. Tragedy. What is that when you go back in time? Was the tragedy in the leaving or in the arriving? The next one. The next one is called Past. I hope you like it. We say past, not dead. We say past, not dead. We say past, not died. At 68, a woman like me died so young, but here they wouldn't say young, because statistically, women of color do this. She was supposed to live, so she decided she couldn't, till the brain forgot. So she did crosswords and read every book I mentioned, and was in college again, because why not? But her brain did this thing we didn't know. It grew in parts. It shifted 14 millimeters to the left, or was it to the right, and was submerged. Something about the brainstem flooding. I saw blood go in and out of the open drainage system they said would prevent more strokes. Her brain was exposed. No, part of her skull was taken. Eventually, her head sunk in on the left. The thinner she got, the closer her brain seemed. I worried the edges of her skull would poke through the skin, that at any moment we would hear a pop. I don't know how to treat an open brain. I don't know what to say about a flood like this. I don't know how to make the bleeding stop. I'm just making sure I want to see which ones I want to read. This next one is called Trance. After trauma, you walk with your eyes dead-like in a forward direction. You tell the cashier, no bag, thanks, when she asks if you need one for another 5 cents. You want to ask her for bandages. The back of your ankle is red, raw, and peeling. You came for something else, but you ask anyway. She says no in confusion and then asks, the flesh kind? And you say yes, the flesh kind. Your raw feet already moving toward the exit. Outside, the light stings. There are cars and cars. Some stop and wave you on. You stare at the cement. Feel the forward whoosh of them, your hair flying behind you. Trauma lives in spaces you're meant to forget. Down a lone road no one knows how to find, without an awful map you can't make. And now your feet are still again, red, raw, and singing. They have taken you to coffee, to sit down, to something cold already. And the server asks, milk and sugar? You say, just milk, no sugar. And he asks again because you mumbled. So you say, no sugar, because that is what you know you like. And no one knows where you are. You drink your coffee, make sure your feet are still there, lift the bandages on your ankles to see the pain. Wait until your mind returns to your eyes so they're no longer dead. Wait until they start to work again, till they lock you back in place so your feet will move again in some forward direction. I'm gonna do a couple more. This is a fun one. At least I think so. It's called Deep Clean. Once I got the dirt, the dust, by maneuvering the broom to fit between the wall and bed, I pushed the weighted headboard with my whole body, leaving behind tan scratches I only later noticed. Underneath the wooden mass, I found his faded favorite boxers, stiffened in a green heap, once wet, now covered in dark bits. Found a baby shirt turned inside out. Found the sweatpants that he'd cut into shorts, the seamless bottoms jagged. He never did know how to cut a straight line. His mess a thing I put up with, almost liked. I gathered all these in a pile, with the final dust and coins, set all that aside, and stared at the exposed wood floor, made clearer the more I moved the broom. Dripped soap as the last step, to see it shine again, though only I would see it. Began the process of pushing with my whole body the bed back against the wall, adjusting it, deciding this time to keep it closer to the wall, much closer, so that nothing would fall into that smaller crack that remains. I think I have time for maybe one more. I'm gonna do quicksand. Mm. Oh, there's quicksand. Mm. Some of these are very influenced by New Mexico, so I'm gonna put that out there. Quicksand. There are purple skies. You told me we would fly once, sprint upward, gallop actually, like horses ready for battle or headed for an epic race. You told me to wind up our legs like we were Christmas toys, waiting to be turned loose. You helped me with my own when once they wouldn't start. Stubborn tree trunks rooted too deeply in the earth. They'd been swallowed up by quicksand, and the earth had kept on chewing, hungry for women thighs to spit out as toothpicks, stripping the fat and delicate tendons out from under me. You saw me under attack. You stretched out your hands, slippery from New Mexican desert sweat, and I reached for them, gnawed at your fingers, scared I might bite you hard. But you pulled me up anyway, in one swift motion, ripping my arm from its socket, though you didn't mean it. You stretched my dry skin, burnt from sun on clay. I could feel the skin crackle and pop, a searing burn, a sharp pain in my shoulder. But the earth is loosening its grip, it's giving way, and my hips begin to wiggle free. My chest is now exposed, and my breath is coming easier. Breathe, I tell myself, gaining freedom, and my legs are next. Up I go, sprinting upward. Here I go, in the direction of the sky maroon and streaked with bloodlines, leaving all that screaming quicksand as I head for open clouds. Someone might find me later, dancing lightly in them. Thank you.
Oh, thanks so much, Mariella. It's so great to hear you read ones that I haven't heard you read live before, in all these cases. And I should note that Mariella has an audiobook version of this book, and it's incredible. And you can find that on most of the major audiobook platforms and also on the press websites. It's really worth checking out. And that's a good segue from a New Mexico poem to a poet in New Mexico. We are going to wrap up with the incomparable Hannah Lee Jones. And Hannah's book has more stickers than can fit on this cover. It's When I Was the Wind, and it's part of our season from last fall. So this came out last November, and it's racked up a lot of awards, and it's really an incredible journey. And Hannah is in New Mexico right now, I believe. And I'm going to turn it over to you, Hannah. I give you a spotlight. All right.
Thank you, Sarah. So good to be here with you all tonight. And here in Silver City, it's quite cold, and the nights have been getting down into the 20s. No snow yet. So this is a poem that opens a section on winter. So I feel very lucky, reading a winter-themed poem that was just written for this particular reading. I feel lucky to be able to share this with you. Winter, sapphire. Silence after the word is heard. Word, I sing night air to shatter at one's feet and meaning. When right, holding out. Where right, hanging on. The heart's kept fire in the inevitable quiet. Not growing up, maturity. Nights cloaked over the dead and unborn waiting. Dark day, blacked with cold, sick yet fertile as a womb. Soul as shadow. Love's thorned initiations for the stillborn living. Soul as breath and fog. Hearth and its still warm grounds for loving. Dream, out of mind, that place of gesture and dark birth. Death, the sleep of trust that awakens. So for 4 years, I lived as a nomad, and this poem was written outside of Las Vegas. I was camped on a dry lake bed near Henderson, Nevada, and the poem is called Vocabulary, Solstice, and we are almost to the solstice. Lucky me. Dusk over a split field, the moon not yet risen over your bone-white table, set for a feast with friends who aren't here. Just the ghost of the city you left to find your breath and water. The fractured soil that suggests something swam here once. Your friends would understand this. Night climbing with headlamps or passing a six-pack around a fire. How between you and what everyone else calls home, a ribbon of asphalt is the line you keep. Home, we say. What is it exactly? As the evening strips bare in the dying light. Love, we agree. It grows dark out here quickly. What a flock of scattered birds we are. Scattered, but birds. It grows dark. So we're living in dark times, and this poem seems to be a poem about history and how history just doesn't seem to end. And so much of our choices as individuals in history, I think, are not necessarily, we choose a life or we might make certain choices, but then we're also influenced by circumstances that are really outside of our control. And this poem was me grappling with that. It's called Ellipse in Wartime. A mayfly born in the morning on a long summer's day knows nothing of darkness. In an island labor camp, men and women carry stones from a quarry. Their breathing stills the air's emptiness like a hand. Somewhere, a hospital fills with the dying. Food trays are left outside the doors. Lovers get in bed with the ill despite their fear. Elsewhere, a revolution in which a soldier sees an enemy fall and helps her up. Back on the island, a stone is dropped. There's an execution by gunfire, while even the owls in the trees cover their eyes. What can we ever know of grace except the blind joy of being spared? Back the stone rolls again to the blood of eastern forests at first light. Having lived, and only lived, the mayfly dies at 4 p.m. It will never know the meaning of night. So in the room with us today is my beloved George Notek, and this poem was written for George. It's called The Foxes, and it's after a painting of that has the same title by Franz Marc. The Foxes. Leaving the chill pretenses of slumber, we stir. We're high in each other's branches, slicked with the afterglow of last night's hard freeze. We've even touched our lips to its cracked skin, featured with orange blossoms and pine oil, defeated its bitter aftermath, but not today. All morning I will be cruel, impassable as a mountain scree, stealing itself in blind snow. And you will wait. King of my nights, tendril that keeps its promise to dark soil, who are you? Fling wide the gates. Teach these torn leaves how to be faithful. And in some of my poems, I seem to favor winter as a poet because so many of my images seem to be rather wintry. And this is one of my most wintry poems of my book. And I really love reading it out loud. So it's the one poem that I think I read this at the last reading and I'd like to read it again for you. It's called Severance, and it's preceded by an epigraph by Ralph Waldo Emerson, who wrote, "So it is with this calamity, it does not touch me. He is abandoned in that snow country after the ice broke and his truck went under. His words erased with the fuel and cargo, prey to the madness of a bridge over a floating world. What errand for a howl with no walls to receive it? One wind slamming through him, toothless and jawless. Two foxes loping over a blanched desert, his tears sharpening with the nights. His wife is a prism casting blank in him as the light wanes. She who made him long for a house whose beams had not been stolen, who handed him a scripture of surrender to that cold and its plow. He moves on all limbs as if toward a memory of split wood, the ice beneath him running to veldt, its margins slashed and burning. There is an eye in this place that watches none but the invisible, an ear heeding a voiceless breath that orders him now to go down into that mistake of salt and untie his shoes. For this ground is hollowed. For tomorrow the woman who comes to claim him will find him buried in the drifts and shadows of that long way, her own silence deepening with the banked snow. And she will wade with him in her arms into the marshes of their spent darkness, his one secret missing from him, and listen for him, long enough to hear the wolf of him singing, his flanks on fire, his ashes sown. And that will be my last poem. And I just want to thank you all so much for showing up tonight to listen to us read. There's so many other things you could be doing on a December night when the holidays get so crazy. And I'm just deeply grateful for the chance to be here with all of you and to share poetry. Thank you, Sarah, for having us.
Thank you. I definitely want to echo that thanks and thank you for sharing that and those poems. I love hearing all of these. There's something so special about gathering this way and hearing you read them in real time together, after having spent so long with them on the page, across these 3 seasons. It's just it's really fun for me. So as we're sitting here with those beautiful readings and pausing here together at the solstice, I thought I'd give my poets a couple of minutes to rest and maybe wrap up by asking the group if anyone has brought one to share, to read a poem that's giving them hope for the season or currently bringing them light. And I want to give a hat tip here to an audience member, Violetta, who's also an excellent poet, and she gave me that idea and said she ran a virtual solstice poetry potluck last year, which sounds fabulous. And after this, while we're thinking about this, we'd love to take your questions. So if you think of anything you'd like to ask the group or one of us in particular in the meantime, go ahead and put that in the chat, and we'll open things up for conversation in a few minutes just after this. Normally, I really like to avoid a spotlight, but I thought I'd be brave tonight and actually participate and and kick us off and read one of the poems that I thought fit that kind of prompt. And the poem that came to mind for me was one that the great Ada Limon wrote for NASA's mission to Europa, Jupiter's moon, which she shared this summer. It'll be engraved on the spacecraft. I believe that launches next October, and turns out to be kind of a nice callback to Diana's new poem that she shared in her reading with the space station. Not exactly a winter poem, but I love what it does with darkness, how it transforms that into this beautiful distillation of life, something all wet and full of wonder and universal and really human. So, so here is that poem. This is called In Praise of Mystery, a poem for Europa by Ada Limon. Arching under the night sky inky with black expansiveness, we point to the planets we know. We pin quick wishes on stars. From Earth, we read the sky as if it is an unerring book of the universe, expert and evident. Still, there are mysteries below our sky. The whale song, the songbird singing its call in the bough of a wind-shaken tree. We are creatures of constant awe, curious at beauty, at leaf and blossom, at grief and pleasure, sun and shadow. And it is not darkness that unites us, not the cold distance of space, but the offering of water, each drop of rain, each rivulet, each pulse, each vein. O second moon, we too are made of water, of vast and beckoning seas. We too are made of wonders, of great and ordinary loves, of small invisible worlds, of a need to call out through the dark. Isn't that beautiful? I love her. Anyway, would anyone else like to share one that they thought of or they brought while we're resting?
I'll read one.
Go for it.
Find the tab. Here it is. Okay. This is Holding the Light by Stuart Kestenbaum, and it's dedicated to Kate Rhodes. Gather up whatever is glittering in the gutter, whatever has tumbled in the waves or fallen in flames out of the sky. For it's not only our hearts that are broken, but the heart of the world as well. Stitch it back together. Make a place where the day speaks to the night and the earth speaks to the sky. Whether we created God or God created us, it all comes down to this. In our imperfect world, we are meant to repair and stitch together what beauty there is. Stitch it with compassion and wire. See how everything we have made gathers the light inside itself and overflows. A blessing.
Love it.
I love that.
Yeah, that's great. Anybody else have one?
I guess I'll go ahead. There were a couple that came to mind, Sarah, and Violetta, thank you so much for suggesting this because I love reading my favorite poems by other poets. And one of the poets that I adore, and I share this in common with Mariella because, yeah, Mariella, so I love Ocean Vuong too. And he wrote an incredible poem called Torso of Air that kind of speaks to the year that I've had working through trauma, working through past stuff, and the title is after a poem by Rainer Maria Rilke, which was the archaic torso of Apollo. And the last line of that poem is, "You must change your life." And so the poem starts, "Suppose you do change your life, and the body is more than a portion of night, sealed with bruises. Suppose you woke and found your shadow replaced by a black wolf, the boy, beautiful and gone. So you take the knife to the wall instead. You carve and carve until the coin of light appears, and you get to look in, at last, on happiness, the eye staring back from the other side, waiting." And then my second is it's one of those touchstone poems that are so good that you end up memorizing it. But I pulled it up just in case. And it's by David White. I actually used to live not far from David White, and so I would run into him at the at the restaurants in Langley, Washington. This is one of my favorites by him. It's called Sweet Darkness, and I think it's a really great winter poem as well. When your eyes are tired, the world is tired also. When your vision has gone, no part of the world can find you. Time to go into the dark where the night has eyes to recognize its own. There you can be sure you are not beyond love. The dark will be your home tonight. The night will give you a horizon further than you can see. You must learn one thing. The world was made to be free in. Give up all the other worlds except the one to which you belong. Sometimes it takes darkness and the sweet confinement of your aloneness to learn that anything or anyone that does not bring you alive is too small for you. Thanks for letting me share.
So good. Thank you. These are great.
I'll read one.
Yes, please.
Since Sarah did Ada Limon, I'm going to do our previous one of our poet laureates, Joy Harjo.
Oh, yeah.
And this is called For Keeps. Sun makes the day new. Tiny green plants emerge from earth. Birds are singing the sky into place. There is nowhere else I want to be but here. I lean into the rhythm of your heart. Uh-oh. Oh my gosh. I just had a candle burning and it was lighting a poem on fire. Okay, Joy Harjo, I'm going to go right back into there is nowhere else I want to be but here. I lean into the rhythm of your heart to see where it will take us. We gallop into a warm southern wind. I link my legs to yours and we ride together toward the ancient encampment of our relatives. Where have you been, they ask, and what has taken you so long? That night after eating, singing, and dancing, we lay together under the stars. We know ourselves to be part of mystery. It is unspeakable. It is everlasting. It is for keeps.
That's excellent and a nice bit of very appropriate drama.
I know. It was like I have
Fire.
a solstice candle burning, but that new poem
We have,
went up in smoke.
we have an on-screen fire for the solstice reading. I
Yes,
feel like
we did. I can't believe
we're
I
gonna go
can't read
viral.
it. Okay.
John pipes up from over here. Too much light.
I'd like to read one.
Oh, please do. Anyone chime in. Absolutely. I will mute myself so I don't interrupt you.
This is by Mace Harton. It's called The Work of Happiness. I thought of happiness, how it is woven out of the silence in the empty house each day, and how it is not sudden, and it is not given, but is creation itself, like the growth of a tree. No one has seen it happen, but inside the bark, another circle is growing in the expanding ring. No one has heard the root go deeper in the dark, but the tree is lifted by this inward work, and its plumes shine and its leaves are glittering. So happiness is woven out of the peace of hours and strikes its roots deep in the house alone. The old chest in the corner, cool waxed floors, white curtains softly and continually blown as the free air moves quietly about the room. A shelf of books, a table, and the whitewashed wall. These are the dear familiar gods of home. And here the work of faith can best be done. The growing tree is green and musical. For what is happiness but growth in peace? The timeless sense of time when furniture has stood a lifespan in a single place. And as the air moves, so the old dreams stir the shining leaves of present happiness. No one has heard thought or listened to a mind, but where people have lived in inwardness, the air is charged with blessing and does bless. Windows look out on mountains, and the walls are kind.
Oh, thanks so much, Fred. That was beautiful. I'm really glad you shared that. There's so many good lines there. Dear familiar gods of home. Lots of things I wanted to write down.
I want to read one.
Oh, please do. Yay.
In the spirit of Ada Limon. So this is from her collection, Bright Dead Things. And this one, again, going with the winter vibes, or with the cold vibes. It's called After the Ice Storm. I point out the ice on the power lines, dripping wet into clean, frozen plumes. Look how solid, how still, oh us, in the swinging blast of this epic chill. And yet, we both know they crack, don't we? Break, drip, give up, crash, come down, and turn to earth again. Gone the sparkle, the dazzling spike of shiver that threatens to stick around forever, like agony. I want to see it. I want to see it die. Unfriendly numbness, the largeness in me, the hot gore of my want and want wants to disarm the fixedness of this. I'll be the strike anywhere, the reckless match you can count on, to claim a life or to save one.
Excellent choice. These are great. And this is really open to anyone who would like to jump in and read anything that.
I'll jump in.
Yes, please, George.
Well, thank you. And first, I'd like to start by just thanking you all for this really extraordinary gift. It's here on one of the longest days of the year. You just, fill my heart. It's such an extraordinary and wonderful evening. So this is a poem that no doubt many are familiar with, but it's a favorite of mine. And before the reading, I scurried out for a little walk, and it's my habit. I brought a couple of carrots to a couple of donkeys that are in my neighborhood. And they're just these sweet animals. And tonight, for some reason, they also touched me with some sense of love and longing. And I came home and I had to look up this poem, and it's by James Wright. And it's called A Blessing. And you no doubt many are familiar with it. Just off the highway to Rochester, Minnesota, twilight bounds softly forth on the grass, and the eyes of those two Indian ponies darken with kindness. They have come gladly out of the willows to welcome my friend and me. We step over the barbed wire into the pasture where they have been grazing all day alone. They ripple tensely. They can hardly contain their happiness that we have come. They bow shyly as wet swans. They love each other. There is no loneliness like theirs. At home once more, they begin munching the young tufts of spring in the darkness. I would like to hold the slenderer one in my arms, for she has walked over to me and nuzzled my left hand. She is black and white. Her mane falls wild on her forehead, and the light breeze moves me to caress her long ear that is delicate as the skin over a girl's wrist. Suddenly, I realize that if I stepped out of my body, I would break into blossom. Thank you.
Thank you. It's perfect. I love that you have donkeys that you can just go visit around.
Yeah, it's quite a treat. So I'm blessed, right? Speaking of which, no pun intended.
Sarah, George sends me a video every day of those donkeys. So yeah, getting their carrots, and every evening I look forward to that video of the donkeys. And sometimes they're wearing their coats, especially in winter. Yeah, the cold. So they're so sweet.
Donkeys are amazing. I think if I had donkeys like right nearby, I would walk and give the donkeys carrots like every day, and probably like strike up a relationship with them, like talk to them. They're smart.
They've got big personalities.
I know. Sure. Like horses, but even more so.
They're humble horses, and they're perfect for this time of year, right? Because Christ rode into Jerusalem on the back of a donkey. Yeah, perfect. Thank you for sharing
Keeping it
that.
all very thematic. These are great. If anybody would like to jump in with another or a question for any of us, we have some time. I can also ramble as filler about some housekeeping things if we need a few minutes. Well, I'll do that for now, but we can come back to additional poems or questions. But thing one is that we're nearing the end of the press's open reading period for the coming year. It's only our third one, and the response so far has been really tremendous. So if you've submitted a manuscript, thank you for the chance to read your work and for making my life a lot more difficult. I love it. We've had a record number of submissions already. and it's going to be a really tough set of decisions. The reading period ends on January 1st, and we should be making final decisions by early February. So watch for new author announcements in the spring and cover reveals and all that good stuff for the new books in the fall. It could be as many as 3 this year. I'm not quite sure yet, but it'll be at least 2. And it's very exciting. It's a fun time of year that we get to focus on that. And also in early February, we'll be at AWP in Kansas City. I mentioned this in September. Now we have a table number. We'll be at table 1208 at the book fair. If there's a map of all the exhibitors on the on AWP's website, so you don't have to memorize that this minute. But if you'll be there, please stop by the table. A bunch of these authors will be there. I will, and we'll almost certainly have chocolate. So there's something in it for you. And lastly, you can use the promo code HOLIDAY in all caps on the press website shop through the end of the month for $2 off any order. So if you don't have a copy of one of these books and you're thinking about it, kind of a nice chance to give one of them a shot. They're all amazing, I promise. Yeah, so it looks like we do have one question. Or at least
it's a great question. I can jump in and start off with that answer. Oh, I'm having light issues everywhere. So do I write more during any particular season of the year? Absolutely. And it's not this season that we're in. I have like a spring kind of rush of poems that often happens just with the solar energy, and I'm a Gemini, so I love that season and just more light, more energy. For me, it really translates into more poems. And just I have seasonal affective disorder, so that is just, it is not the time to be more productive, or it's usually not when maybe I write in a journal, but I don't as much finish things or see them through in the way I do in the springtime. So I'm curious to hear about others.
I think, Diana, I'm more productive too in the spring and summer, and part of that is I get outside more, and I just find that that's sort of like where questions come to me. There's something about sitting inside during the winter where I'm just not as contemplative. I'm more just like hibernating.
I don't think that there's a particular season in which I write more than others. I think that there's a certain condition that I happen to be in whenever a poem strikes, and it's usually a condition in which I'm solitary and I've slowed down a lot. I'm not busy. I'm kind of almost meditative and perhaps wandering out in nature. I encounter so much out there that inspires me, and I think there's a way that walking seems to jog something for me, where images and ideas just tend to strike when I'm walking, and sometimes in the shower. But people speak about the shower like that's where it all happens, but it's not so much the case for me. So yeah, I think I find the more spaciousness I have in my life, the more those poems tend to come.
Yeah, I think similarly to Hannah, and also to Diane, I think I think it depends on place. I think in New York, kind of going with the solitary activity, like of commuting, like being on trains, I feel like I would write a lot when I was on trains. And also in the winter, I don't know why in New York, but here I am definitely more in hibernation mode. But I think in a city, when you're just like walking around and then like sitting somewhere, like warming up, I would write a lot. So I definitely think it depends on place, but definitely when I'm alone and I'm watching and observing, often on moving vehicles.
Yeah, same. I mean, same as Hannah, and the same as a little bit of what Mariella said. Being alone in nature is definitely my thing. When I can do it, and really doesn't matter the season, but probably spring and fall just tend to have more things going on in my mind, maybe. But spaciousness is definitely the thing that leads to poetry. Sometimes I have it, sometimes I don't. Sometimes I often just have to run away from my house, and then I can write. But we have a lot of noise and people in the house all the time, so that is the challenge. Yeah.
That definitely makes sense. And that's a great question, Jenny. Thank you for that. And I see we have a hand raised, and you are just Zoom user, so I'm going to call you Zoom user, and you can tell me what your name is.
Hello, everyone, and happy holidays. My name is Steve.
Oh,
I
you're
happen
Steve.
to be
Hi.
Hannah's brother. Yes, nice to meet you all. So I just wanted to echo what George had said earlier, that this is a really special gathering, and I just really enjoyed all the readings by all the poets tonight. My question, I think you might have started answering it in the last round, but I just like, as a fellow creator, I've been thinking about writer's block, and it happens to the best of us. And so, to the poets, and Hannah, you can answer this if you want to, but no pressure. Like, what do you do to overcome that hurdle? Thank you.
I'm really good at writer's block, so I feel like I have a lot to say about it. Meaning good at like accepting writer's block. Like before, like I've got 2 kids, so they're really good excuses, and a full-time job, like all those things like get in the way. But before that, I didn't really have as many excuses. So I, first of all, found over the years that I naturally have silent periods and more productive periods of time. And I'm not sure what the factors are that lead into that, but it's sort of a natural fluctuation. And I really believe strongly that, we need to resist this notion of productivity. It's very capitalist, it's very consumerist, and we don't have to be producing all the time. And I think for any type of artist, we're talking about hibernation right now. Like, I feel like hibernation is part of that natural process. And so there are times when it's really okay to be quiet, and there's something that's going to be growing and, under the soil. Or it might not be that, but it might be there is something that you want to say, and there is something there, but it hasn't found its way out yet. So I think that there's like a lot of tricks that you can play, if you feel like you're frustrated and you feel like there's something that does want to come out. So like sometimes it means just playing around in a different medium, or a different genre, listening to music, watching a film, like just putting yourself outside your normal modes of creation, or what you're kind of viewing or inputting, and see if that leads you somewhere. Obviously, there's prompts like everywhere, you can always find prompts. And prompts are good. I mean, honestly, I think a lot of the poems that ended up in this book, or like the beginning of writing the poems into this book, I had come from a very quiet period where and I was getting very frustrated too, because I was like, oh, I haven't written in a while, and I just feel like what's wrong, and there's something wrong. And eventually that frustration led me to just start doing random prompts. And early on I was just reading I'd read science articles, and some of those eventually led to poems. And so it was just kind of like trying different things to get myself out of that funk. Was very helpful.
It's a great question, Steve. And I think having grown up in the same household where you and I, we probably suffered some of the same kind of struggles around expression. Yeah, I know that for myself, I struggle the most with self-consciousness, and that has been the biggest source of my blocks. Is the sense that I worry how my work will be received, and in that there's a kind of a holding back, or just a sense of like feeling like I have to get it down perfect, and if I don't, then it's a failure out the gate, and that's just simply not true. So there's a certain courage one has to kind of access to show up for the task of putting something down imperfectly and having that shitty first draft. And yeah, I think that so much of my own work has been around just kind of getting out of my own way so that whatever wants to come through wants to come through. But I agree with you, Hila. I have to second this whole idea of the, yeah, just when it's not ready, right? It's not ready until it's ready. And so sometimes you have to kind of set something aside, maybe do something that is similar to those scientific articles, like dabbling in something that has nothing to do with what you normally do. Yeah. To get you into a different mode.
Yeah, I think for me a lot, I love going to museums too. I think that just seeing the art and seeing, yeah, the different mediums that artists use definitely puts me in a different headspace. And I often will deliberately try to write after based on something I've seen or as something speaks to me. But one thing I struggle with is that I guess I don't know the word is easier, but I'm gonna say it's easier. When life is hard, it like leads you to write, at least for me. So it's like when things are hard, it's like things just come because that's the way I process. But I guess I struggle when things are calmer. And when things, I think that's when I have to figure out how do I, maybe I want to write about happier things, which is something I don't normally do, but maybe that's something to explore. Maybe I want to, I don't know, reflect in a different way. So that's something I definitely have noticed. But I think museums are my way to like just change my perspective a little bit.
Yeah, I'm like you, Mariella. Like there's something about having conflict and grief and something bitterness and sadness that really gets my writing juices going. And like when I'm really happy and content and all that, I'm like, oh, I don't know. I'd rather, I don't know, read a good book on poetry or something. So um but I have found that prompts, especially crazy prompts that make no sense, have been really wonderful. So I'll often, whether it's for a poem or short story, just put something down like, and I do have a story about this. A donkey named Trombone kicks a man into a coma. Write a short story. Like, and then I force myself to write to that sentence. Just what the heck does it mean, right? I have no clue. And so I'm naive about what I'm writing because I have no clue what that means. And so what I love is it reveals itself as you go. And so there's really no blockage because you're just kind of along for the ride. And that's been really helpful.
I'm really impressed by that. I'm not someone who's had that much luck writing from prompts unless they're really, really short ones. Like a couple words, maybe. I guess Louise Glick wrote about her silences. Believe me, I'm not comparing myself to Louise Glick, but I found that really comforting, and likewise what you said. Hila, that idea that we're supposed to be equally productive all the time and like churn out a certain number of poems per week, but I could catch my brain doing that. And actually that's the surest thing that's just gonna smother poetry. So I've tried to embrace the sense that it's okay if I'm not generating, maybe it's a time that I'm reading more. And I love to read novels, like I love to read outside the genre of that I write in. And so I just give myself a lot of permission to do that. I wish I did. I have sort of a like a lifelong kind of fascination / envy of visual artists and how physical their work is. And it's been a long time, but I remember being on a residency at the Vermont Studio Center, and there are these, huge studios, and I feel like the friends who I made who are painters are just like pacing around and putting, paint on their canvases or like listening to music, and writing is always, I'm a very physical person, which is why sometimes like the solitary sedentary aspect of writing doesn't feel is harder. It's harder to come by, which is I think why let's say when it's light out in the spring and I can be out in the garden or out in the woods, or then coming in to write. But likewise, I think it was someone who said, sitting, oh, was it you, Diane, just like being inside in the house in a dark, winter time this is not going to be the time when I'm going to be a productive writer, and depression is a factor for me, and I have to just accept that, and try not to fight it and be more mean to myself and like, oh, and you're not even like writing poems either. So those, just trying to recognize those voices and trust the silence will end eventually. But I welcome if anyone has like a great book of poetry prompts that have helped them get out of a writer's block. I'll any kind of writing prompt, I'll welcome that in the chat.
Thanks so much. These are really illuminating answers. And thanks, Steve, for that question. That's getting us to talk about this. Some really good ideas. I love visiting museums, Mariella. That's you've mentioned that before, and I sort of got out of that habit, and it's a really good idea, no matter what your medium is, or just as any sort of creative person. It's a nice way to, like you said, shift your perspective. I love the sort of permission to have fallow periods and shitty first drafts, and just going along for the rides of prompts and things like that. It's a nice reminder. And then we had a second donkey reference, which seems to be an emerging theme that we might have to pursue. And while we're pausing for a minute or listening to me, I realized I forgot to pick giveaway winners. So let me do that quickly. We have Emily Patterson and Heather Lynn. So I will be in touch with you after, and just think about which of these books you might want, and I'll send you a tote bag and a book, and hopefully that'll be a nice extra thing to sit with this season and spend some more time with this poetry. So if anyone needs to head out, feel free, but we can keep chatting if there are other questions. I see that Jenny has also suggested, as we're thinking about artists across media, wrapping up the year, sharing a piece of art that's stuck with us this year, I think in any format. So that's something we can answer. I think Diane needs to leave, but if anybody else would like to share something like that, might be inspiring them for the season. Another piece of art, visual art, maybe. And if not, that's okay too.
I wrote it in the chat, but I was just amazed. I maybe I'm late to the game, I think a couple years late, but Diane Seuss Frank sonnets, just extraordinary.
I have a
I
copy of
still
that,
haven't read it.
and I started reading. I didn't get very far. Okay, you're inspired.
I keep hearing about it.
I know. Good suggestion. And Mariella, you suggested one. Maybe you can tell us about that a little bit.
Yes, I stumbled on one of her works at the Rubel Museum. It might have been last year actually, but I actually have it as my screensaver because it's abstract, but it talks about immigration and identity and all these things. I'm looking up for the title of it, but I know that's the artist name, Wangenchi Mutu. So if I find the name of the one that's on my screen, I'll send it. But definitely really cool work if you just look up, you Google her name.
That's great. Well, with that we should wrap up because it is almost 10 here on the East Coast. But I just want to sincerely thank everyone for being here tonight and for your support of what we're doing and what we're building. It's so nice to see all these faces and have you here with us at this really busy time of year. And it's a cliche, but I say it all the time. June Road Press really is a labor of love. So thanks for being part of our growing little community. And I wish everyone a restful remainder of the holiday season and a happy new year. And I really hope we can do this again in 2024, maybe a couple of times. Maybe we'll make it a seasonal thing. We've done a fall and a winter. We can do a spring. And I hope to see some of you at AWP, and some of you maybe in my submittable feed, and others at a later reading if we do this again. So thanks so much for joining us tonight, and have a beautiful rest of your solstice week.